Hello, hello, hello everyone. My name is Shelby. Welcome back to my channel, Grace with Books. Today on the day this is premiering is my 20th birthday. I thought it was so serendipitous that my birthday fell on a posting day because I knew I could do something really fun for today's video. I was really stuck between doing a birthday tag and 20 books for 20 years, and obviously this is the one that got chosen, and I'm really excited about it because it's like a humongous top 5. It's the ultimate top 5 video. It's top 20, but thankfully 20 is a dividable number, so I've sort of broken this up into sections. I have 4 sections, so I'll be doing my top 5 childhood books, my top 5 middle school books, my top 5 young adult books, and my top 5 new adult books. So hopefully that'll make this go a little quicker. I'm gonna give brief summaries or just a brief comment of why I love these books and why I curated them for this list. And that is gonna be the video. So without further ado, here is my top 20 video for 20 years. So we are going to start with my top 5 childhood books. These are books that really started my love of reading, and I chose books that, like, when I saw their name, it just brought such a warm and fuzzy feeling to my heart. The first book I'm going to mention today is a book that I loved even before Harry Potter. It is one of the very first books that I read by myself, and it still just holds such a special place in my heart, and that would be Where the Sidewalk Ends by Shel Silverstein. This collection of poems and drawings I think impacted so many kids. His silly poems about peanut butter sandwiches and tree houses just really brought out the creativity in me, and I think a lot of kids. His illustrations were funny, and overall it's just such a homey book, and one I think I'll cherish forever, one that I think I'll tell my kids about one day, because I don't think you could really outgrow Shel Silverstein, and I think it's one of those collections, one of those pieces that'll last for a really long time and stay relevant with each generation of kids. The next book I'm going to talk to you about today is, of course, Harry Potter, but specifically for me, Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. This is my favorite book in the Harry Potter series. For me, one of my favorite things about it is that Harry gets to learn more about where he's from. He gets to learn more about his parents and what they were like, obviously. He just learns so much about himself. There's so much character growth in this book, and I just love the plot. I love the humor and the strengthening of friendships, and it's just a book that will always be my favorite in the series. The next book I'm gonna share to you that was a huge big favorite in my childhood was A Wrinkle in Time by Madeleine L'Engle. This is a book my mom and I read together. This is one that she read as a kid, and then when I read, she was so excited. I just think that this book is so incredibly whimsical. It literally takes you to another world. The opening line is definitely one of my favorites of all time. It was a dark and stormy night. And watching Megan Murray's journey to save her father was just so inspiring to me, and I adored this book as a kid. The next book I want to share with you guys, the 4th book, is Alice in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll. I loved this story. I just thought it was so silly, and Alice looked like me. She had blonde hair, and I wanted to be Alice when I was little and go to Wonderland and have all these adventures and go to the Mad Hatter's Tea Party, and I just have such wonderful memories of reading this book and then watching the movie and just getting lost in Wonderland, and that still remains to be one of my favorite fairy tales today. The final book I'm going to share with you is one I really think defines my childhood, right up there with Harry Potter, and that would be The Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. I listened to every single audiobook in this series going to bed. When I was younger, I would listen to The Magician's Nephew. I listened to all the ones that you don't really think about when you think of Narnia, because books and Narnia was just something I so wanted to get lost in when I was a kid. I wanted to go. I would open my closet door multiple times a night just to see if there was anything in there, like, you know, a Winter Wonderland. It's just something that has stuck with me forever. I still enjoy the books and the movies today. I don't enjoy Dawn Treader as much as I did when I was a kid. The movie is just but Lord knows I love the first 2 movies in that series. I love the books, and it's something I don't think I'll ever outgrow. Next up, we're gonna look at 5 books that really defined my middle school years. One of the first books that really defined me as a middle schooler was definitely, that's backwards, favorites. The Lightning Thief by Rick Riordan. The Percy Jackson series just meant so much of me. It fueled my love of Greek mythology. Oh lord, I became obsessed. I was so smart in all my English classes when we did like the Iliad and things like that. I was like, I know all the gods. The Lightning Thief, I think, is something that a lot of people in my generation can relate to because we all grew up reading those books, and it's that kind of shared experience. It's one of the first times that I would be at lunch and I would just talk about books with my friends. We would all discuss The Lightning Thief. We would all talk about that series. So it was my first introduction into the fandom world, and I just appreciated it so much for that. Now, if you thought the Percy Jackson series fueled my love of reading, the first book I became wholly obsessed with is The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins. Oh lord. I would make like shirts, Team PETA, and I would wear them to school. I don't know what I was thinking. I had drawings, like I learned how to draw this so exactly. I had posters around my room. Oh lord, I dressed up to go to the movie premieres. I was wholly obsessed with The Hunger Games, and for good reason. I think that it was my first toe dip into dystopian books, and it had a strong female character, and it was a little bit horrifying if you think about the story and the plot, but it just drew me in and I was obsessive about it. So thank you, Hunger Games, for showing me just how far a person can go into the fandom world. The next series, the third series that was super important to me in middle school, was the Gallagher Girls series by Ally Carter. This book was freaking awesome. It promoted girl power. It's about a secret prep school for spies, and it was just so wonderfully written, and I felt like I grew up with the books. Like, they're very middle grade at first, but then as you get further into the series, they get a little bit more young adult. So I really did feel like I was maturing at the rates the books matured. I felt like I was growing up with these characters, and they were just like me, and they were silly and fun, but they were also badass spies. So I really wanted to be the characters in this book. Oh boy. I would have given anything to go to a secret spy school. How do you even get into those, by the way? Like, is there an application? The fourth middle grade book I'm gonna share with you guys is coming right off my Percy Jackson mythology craze. After reading the Percy Jackson series, one myth I became wholly obsessed with was Hades and Persephone. I love that sort of forbidden love aspect. I'm a hopeless romantic. So one of my favorite interpretations of this myth was The Goddess Test by Amy Carter. Oh lord. It was just such a creative way to do it in modern times in a way that still felt very relevant, but still also felt connected to the Greek mythology. And I got so many people to read this book. Oh boy, I made my friends read this book just so I could talk about it with them. That is how obsessed I was with it. The final book I'm gonna talk about for middle grade is a graphic novel, actually, and it is one that I love so much. Like, just thinking about it brings back all the nostalgia, and that would be the Bone series by Jeff Smith. Oh lord, if you have not read the graphic novel Bone and you're interested in like middle grade graphic novels and books, please check it out. It's so cool. Bone tells the story about four brothers, four bones, named Phone Bone, Phony Bone, and Smiley Bone. And after they get kicked out of their town, Boneville, they get lost in this forest where all these mysterious and dark creatures await them, and they sort of have to learn to survive. And it grows into so much more than that. If you read this book, you will just simply get lost in the storytelling and how Jeff Smith expands upon each book. It starts off so simple, but it gets so much more, and this book I read with my entire family, and it's just something I will always treasure. So that is it for the middle school books. Now we're gonna move on to my favorite high school / young adult books. The first books I'm gonna talk about today that really helped me in my young adult book experience is City of Bones, aka the entire Mortal Instruments series by Cassandra Clare. Oh boy, I love these books. It's sort of my first time reading about more adult characters. This concept of a secret world hidden within our own was just so powerful to me. I loved Clary, I loved Jace, I loved everyone in this book. I think Cassandra Clare has such wonderful story writing abilities. I think she does a really great job at foreshadowing and just making you interested and engaged throughout the entire series, and it is a long series and I was here for all of it. I learned how to draw like every single rune, like I can do them right now like on my hand. I still do it when I'm bored. I will literally just doodle runes on myself, and this was just like defined my high school years. Once again, I also made a lot of my friends read it. Yeah, when my friends need a book recommendation, like I always come through, and usually it's this book. Next up, for another book I really loved in my young adult years, is Divergent. Coming right off of that Hunger Games dystopian phase, has another dystopian book that, even though it does have some of the same characteristics, strong woman confined in a box wants to break out of said box, it was just so much fun for me. And it's the first time I really crushed on a guy in a book and in a movie. I mean, Theo James, he was perfect. Lord knows I loved the first and second books in that series. The third book felt short for me, but I really loved Divergent, that book as a whole. The next book that I really loved in the young adult genre was The Selection by Kiera Cass. Oh my god, what young adult was not obsessed with this? I haven't read it in a really long time, and I think if I were to read it, I would get much more annoyed and maybe not like it as much as I did when I was in 9th grade. But you know, right now it's just perfect to me. I had the amazing opportunity to meet Kiera Cass and hear her speak, and it was just such a fun experience. I got all my sisters into these books. Ugh, I just loved the grandeur and the magic and the fairy tale-esque setting of this book series, and I love it for showing me a different type of book. The next series I'm gonna talk about is The Luck series by Jennifer L. Armentrout. If you've been with me long, you know how much I love this book because I talk about it all the time. I'm so sorry. But this paranormal young adult book is everything to me. It got me through such a hard time. Watching Katie and Damon's story develop from the first book to the end was just such a joy for me. If you don't know, this book is about a girl named Katie who moves to a new town to find out she's living next door to an alien, a hot alien, and it's chef's kiss. It's perfect. And I don't want to say too much because I don't want to spoil it. Read it if you like paranormal high school stuff, but I was in love with this book. In love. I still reread it to this day. If I am in a slump, this is the series I read to get me out of that slump, because I can't read this and not enjoy it. Like, I can't. It's so good. The last young adult series I'm going to talk to you about today is The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. Woo! The Folk of the Air trilogy is just done so well. It's a perfect blend of fantasy, action, and like political intrigue. I loved Juden Carden because I love an enemies to lovers story. Even though this was incredibly slow burn, Holly Black just has all these twists and turns in there that you just never see coming, and it is amazing, and it just kept me on the edge of my seat, and I so appreciated what she did with this book. Finally, we are going to get to my top 5 new adult books. For the past year and a half, 2 years, I've definitely been reading a lot more adult books, and I think it might be my new favorite genre because I've been really loving the maturity and the stories within this entire genre. So I'm gonna tell you guys about 5 of my favorites. Well, technically the first one I'm going to talk to you about isn't one specific book. It is an author who writes a lot of standalones, and I couldn't pick just one of hers, and that would be Penelope Douglas. Adult romance is something I've gotten into recently, and I have found that I love Penelope Douglas's books. I love her enemies to lovers stories. I love the passion in her writing, the sexier scenes. I love her plot lines and how, even though it is a bit of a sexier book, there's still a story there, and it still progresses, and it's so amazing. And some of my favorites from her are Birthday Girl, Credence, Punk 57. I read the Bully series by her. I've read almost all of her books at this point. They're so good, and I highly recommend if you're interested in starting off with some adult romance. Keeping on that adult romance train, the next book I'm going to talk to you about is Well Met by Jen DeLuca. This is a book I actually read recently and has just stuck with me because it is the perfect blend of funny and snarky and sad, and it is about a girl named Emily who, after her sister was in a car crash, comes to take care of her and ends up volunteering for this town Renaissance fair. And I just adored this book. It was just so funny, and in this strange time right now where everything's a little sad, this just brought me so much humor and light, and I think I will always appreciate it for that. And it's just like a nice, easy read, and sometimes you just need an easy read, and I really loved this book. The next book I'm going to talk about is classified as a young adult book, but I personally don't agree. I think it actually has not been as popular with young adults. I think that because it's a lot more mature and refined, it is more of a new adult book, and that would be Scythe by Neil Shusterman. I don't know, this reads as more adult and mature to me than, say, other young adult books would, but this is just such an interesting book because it is so different from other fantasy books I have read before. It is about the future where everyone is healthy and safe and you cannot die anymore. So in order to keep the population under control, government has appointed scythes who basically have to meet a quota of killing every week in order to keep the population in check. And this story follows two apprentices throughout their experience training with the scythe to become scythes themselves. There is not a lot of action, there's not a lot of romance, it's just a lot of lessons, and I think it is so special how they do it. And yes, there's some drama that happens, there's some plot twists, but I don't know, this book just reads as very mature to me, and it was just so different from other things I had read, and I really appreciated that. The next book that really has defined my new adult reading experience is also one that's classified as young adult, but really should not be. And anyone who has read this book, let me know if you disagree, because I'd love to have that conversation, because I definitely think that Nevernight by J. Kristoff is a new adult book. Don't know why it's classified as young adult. There's so much shit that goes on in here that like younger kids should not read. But Nevernight was just such a fun and dark book. I had already loved J. Kristoff's writing from Illumini and that series, but Lord, this tells the story about a girl named Mia Corvair who is out for revenge to those who murdered her family, and she decides to go join this secret assassin school, and it's so dark, and the writing style is so dark humor, funny, gory, disgusting at times. I like the fact that J. Kristoff wrote this in a way that you would write like a history book, and he has like little asterisks that lead down to footnotes, and it was a weird writing style for me to get into, but I ended up really appreciating it and loving it all the more. Each book just gets grittier and darker, and I fell in love with the darkness of this book. The final book that I'm gonna talk about for my 20 books in 20 years is one that I've just held so close to my heart. I truly tried to save the best for last in this case, and that best for last would be the ACOTAR series by Sarah J. Maas. And yes, I'm aware this is 3 books, but I'm counting like the series as one slot. If we're talking specifically, the second book in the series is my favorite, A Court of Mist and Fury. I just think it was so well done. But Sarah J. Maas has just welcomed me into the new adult world with open arms. Her books are so witty and funny and feature strong female characters who don't need no man. The lessons in them are just amazing. She has this way with words and with planting seeds that don't bloom until 2 books later. It's good writing, it's smart writing, it's well done writing, and I just really appreciate that. I've been loving her books as I go. She just released a new one that I really enjoyed. So of course I had to end this series with her books, and especially ACOTAR, which were the first books I read by her. I would include Throne of Glass, but then this would be like the top 30 books for 20 years old, and that doesn't make sense. So yeah, I'm gonna end it with Sarah J. Maas. And those were my top 20 books for 20 years. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you liked this video. I feel so loved and supported by this community, and I'm so happy I get to share a little bit of my birthday with you. If you liked this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. Hit the notification bell to get updates on when I post. I post every single Monday and Thursday, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye everyone, love you!